+1 -1 is dead, and Wargaming killed it. Let's take a look at what they have to say about +1 -1. I apologize for double ping today, but I wanted to share some important information with you. With the matchmaking test currently running until tomorrow, we've received many questions regarding +1 -1 and some other matchmaking related topics. I shared a lot of frequently asked questions with you in the recent developer Q&A. This was possible thanks to the work of Mr. SPG, who provided me with all the detailed responses. We hope that this clarifies some of the questions you might have around those topics. Okay, Wargaming, let's see some of these questions that people had asked. Recent developer Q&A. That's this one. Okay, we have it set up right here. Okay, so here are the matchmaker questions for +1 -1. Let's see what they have to say and see how silly they sound, or see how smart they sound, and we'll just go into it here. Okay, why won't you enable +1 -1 matchmaking full time or have it more often on weekends? There aren't the numbers of players required during the low population time, even on weekends, to actually give players a good experience queuing up for a match. To give players a good experience queuing. That's quite an interesting thing to be focusing on, is your queue. Thinking that is your good experience in your game. The good experience in your game is your gameplay, not your queue. I think more people would be willing to put up with a longer queue time if it means that the quality of matchmaking, not matchmaker, the quality of matchmaking is a little bit better, and the quality of gameplay is better, because otherwise you're spending, like, let's say you spend 30 seconds in queue, but you're bottom tier 33% of the time in your stock T44. That's not fun. You're going to have 2 7-minute games, well, 5 I think is the average time now, so you're going to waste, a minute in queue time because of 30 seconds, and 10 minutes of play time, plus loading time, all that. So you're wasting probably close to 15 minutes of your life having a miserable time. While if you just have to wait an extra 30 seconds to get into a game, so 1 minute, you wait 30 seconds and maybe you have to fight tier 9s in your T44, and that's not so bad. But anyway, that's just what they're telling us. Oh, and plus, he's saying the numbers of players required during the low population time, even on weekends, to actually give players a good experience queuing up a match, there aren't enough. And yet they're trying to introduce a new Matchmaker template, which I like this new Matchmaker that they're trying to introduce. I'm not going to say it's bad. It's not as good as +1 -1, but it's not bad. Which is actually harder on matchmaking than +1 -1, because +1 -1 is just grabbing tanks, and it's just pulling them in that are one tier apart. Meanwhile, this new Matchmaker they're trying to implement requires exact matchups. So if you have 3 tier 10 heavies, then the other team needs 3 tier 10 heavies. And so it's literally waiting for that extra tier 10 heavy to enter into queue. And if that never does, then this poor player never gets put into a game until his equal queues up. And so there's a potential for it to be even longer. Alright, here we go. What do you mean by good experience? We'd rather wait longer to get +1 -1 match than a +2 -2 match. Okay, here we go. Here's the question. A good experience is one where 2 teams have similar composition, no bots, and the person who waited the longest for a match waited less than 60 seconds. During prime time, late afternoon, evening, EU, and late afternoon, evening, NA, the matchmakers don't have a problem doing the above. Okay, so a good experience, again, they're emphasizing that a good experience is queue time, queue wait time, not gameplay. Again, they're proving that they don't care about gameplay. I mean, and let's be honest, they never have. Remember, they tell you, oh, black tanks won't be on sale again, so buy them now. Then now they sell them like hotcakes, right? And so Wargaming's idea of saving their game is squeezing out as much money as they can, because they know they can't save it because they are lazy. They're not implementing things that could save their game. They're just trying to get money out of you. So anyway, the problems, however, start occurring when it's no longer peak hours, which you've explained above already. At the lowest population point of the day, the average queue time jumps substantially to the point where bots in matches are the rule and not the exception. We don't like having to make bot matches, but having bot matches avoids someone waiting in queue for 5 minutes without getting a match. Note that a bot match means that somebody waited, as of this writing, at least 3 minutes in queue. That is not a good experience. Okay? To be clear, there are instances which very rarely occur, where in the normal matchmaking, someone has to wait 5 minutes without finding a battle. When we've had +1/-1 events in the past, the situation at low population time on weekends gets even worse. There is a significant number of people who did wait the 5 minutes without getting a match. Okay, to be clear, there are instances which very rarely occur where in the normal matchmaking someone has to wait 5 minutes without finding a battle. This is talking about +1 or +2/-2, in case you're wondering, because that is what they're talking about in the current matchmaking, normal matchmaking. So this is +2/-2. Sometimes people have to wait. Okay, and then he says, when we've added +1/-1 events in the past, the situation at low population time on weekends gets even worse. Oh my goodness, Wargaming. Oh, trying to make the facts sound worse than they are by mentioning +2/-2 here and saying sometimes people still have to wait 5 minutes. So if we add +1/-1, it's going to be even worse at the worst times. You need to compare +2/-2 with +1/-1 with the same numbers, with the same instances. You can't be like, oh, we're going to show you +1/-1 or +2/-2 at its best, and then we're going to show you +1/-1 at its worst. Those are the comparisons. No. Show +1/-1 at its best, and show +2/-2 at its best, and show +2/-2 at its worst, and +1/-1 at its worst. They're going to two extremes to prove their point instead of. Anyway, that's terrible. There's a significant number of people who did wait 5 minutes without getting a match. Yes, and you were just literally just telling me that it's the same in +2/-2. So cool. The population numbers during the week are even lower, so it would be impossible to have it enabled then. Put simply, we don't want players to queue up with end timeout. We think, emphasis on think. This is an assumption they're going to make. This is not based on numbers. That most players would re-queue again or pick a different tank to re-queue it again. But if the timeout happened again, they'd just quit the game. We think. No numbers to back that up. They have no reason right now. They still haven't given us a reason why they can't implement +1/-1. Because their first reason was an extreme where they were comparing the best of +2 with the worst of +1. And then their next reason was a we think. And the previous reason before that was good experience, being Q is where players have a good experience, not in the game. So they still have no reason why they can't implement it. Oh boy, what about putting more bots into the matches? At the very low tiers, we do allow higher population of bots in the game, but it's something that we want to avoid at the more common battle tiers. Well, you can't because you're killing your game. People are leaving in droves. 6.0 was the worst for veteran players. The amount of veteran players that left was ridiculous. Yes, you had a lot of new players come check it out, but they're gone now. Those guys left. The new players are gone already. There was a huge influx of players for a couple of months in the game. Like, you went in queue, and there would be 24,000 people on a server at a time, which is something that hasn't been the case in World of Tanks since the game first came out. But that has since dropped again, and you're lucky to have 12,000 at prime time combined on both servers. So the bots aren't exactly a challenge to play against at the moment, so having more of them dilutes the PvP experience that we're trying to bring. To be clear, bots in matches are only there to make sure that players get a match without waiting too long. If we could, we'd rid of the bot matches entirely, and that's true. So far, this is the only question they seem to have answered well. Bots are annoying, and we don't want them. We need them, but we don't want them. Does that make sense? What happens if players come back and the player count increases? As we've said before, it's not the population at prime time that matters. It's the population at low peaks that's important. If that's what's important, why didn't you tell us how they... Okay. Why didn't you tell us what +2/-2 is like at the low? But you didn't. You told us at normal matchmaking times. Sometimes it doesn't. Like, if that's what's important, then why didn't you tell us this? With +2/-2. Okay. As a rough estimate, the matchmaker requires about 3 times the current low peak population in order to avoid queue timeouts with a +1/-1 enabled. Well, at extremes, you've already stated that this is with extremes. If you turn on +1/-1 permanently, the players will come back. When we've turned it on in the past, the low peak population doesn't change meaningfully. Oh, so it does change. And by the way, if it changed negatively, they would have said so. They would have said the player base drops, but it doesn't. It says it doesn't change meaningfully, which means it does change, meaning it does go up. So more players do play with +1, -1. Wait, more players do play. Doesn't that mean, the game's longevity is in a better situation more players are playing? Didn't you just say that players are going to be leaving if the queue times are longer? But you here are now saying that more players are playing with +1, -1. But literally before you said, we think players leave with the long queue times. Clearly more players leave with +2, -2 than they do with +1, -1. And it's not necessarily +2, -2 that people are leaving. It's because they're getting into games where they can't have an impact, and the games are over in literally 4 minutes to 5 minutes. That's the average game time right now, is 4 to 5 minutes, which is absolutely ridiculous. With +1, -1, the games are slightly longer. Maybe not by much, but they're slightly longer, and you have almost any tank you play, you'll have some kind of impact. It's going to be hard still in your stock T-44, but at least you're not fighting Type 5 heavies, 279Es, chieftains, machines, Russian Tier 10 mediums, and stuff like that. You don't have to worry about that, because you can't do anything about them when you're in your stock T-44, but you can kind of do things to, let's say, IS-8s. Or sorry, they're T-10s now. You can possibly do something to a T-10 as compared to a 277. You can possibly do something to a Type 4 as compared to a Type 5, because the Type 4 actually has weak spots. You see? So they're going back and forth, and they're proving themselves wrong with their points, but they're trying to word themselves so carefully, so subtly. But that doesn't work. I wrote a book and I had to edit it meticulously to make sure, and so I notice English. I love English now. And I do this with the Bible too. I go through and I read, okay, what did the writer mean here? Why is there a comma there? Why did he use this word here? It's really cool. Learn English, guys. It's really cool. Study English. Anyway, let's continue on. What about turning it on during certain parts of the day? There we go. This is completely feasible. We're not going to get to the answer just yet, because they were literally saying the issue is not prime time. The issue is low peak time. Okay? Low peak time is the issue, not prime time. So if they bring up and say, oh, we're just not going to do that, because then we'll see. Okay. We think that players who play during the off-peak hours would regard this as punishment for them because of their geolocation. They have to play on a particular server at off-peak hours in order to get decent game ping time, or decent ping times. Wait a minute. Excuse me. 1 second. Now you've just openly admitted that players want +1, -1 with that sentence. We think that players who play during the off-peak hours would regard this as punishment for them because they still have to play in +2, -2. So you've just admitted that +2, -2 is a punishment. They've just literally admitted +2, -2 is a punishment. Knowing that they are getting +2, -2, and someone who can play prime time on those servers would get +1, -1 would not make them happy. Life isn't fair. Suck it up. Being always bottom tier is a horrible experience. Is there anything you can do? First, there is a feature in World War II Matchmaker that prevents players from being bottom tier for more than 2 matches without getting a top tier match. This is not true. I literally had a session the other day where I played 5 times. 5 times. In my Hydra IS-6, and I was bottom tier every time. But then I had a session before where I played it 4 times and was top tier 3 times and mid tier once. But the point is, this is clearly not working. It says, so players are basically guaranteed that 33% of the time. They're basically guaranteed that, but that's not true. And they will get a top tier match. So you're telling us, so even if this were true, and 33% of the time you're top tier. Oh, by the way, remember, 100% of the time when you're playing tier 10, you're top tier, and that destroys this. This is why you can't be top tier 33% of the time, because of tier 10s, if you're playing your tier 8s. This is why this doesn't work at tier 8, because of tier 10. Tier 10 does not have Tier 11 or Tier 12s to play against. Same with Tier 9. They do not have Tier 11s to play against. And so Tier 8 does not benefit from this. Tier 7 mostly benefits from this, but not quite because of Tier 9s. And then Tier 6, where you would benefit from this, you don't, because you have +2 -1 matchmaking. So you can't fight Tier 4s, which means it's even harder for the matchmaker, again, to give you a game where you're top tier, because they have to fill it in with some 7s. And even if this did work, even if the 33% of the time did work, if each game is 5 minutes, then 2 games you're bottom tier, that's 10 minutes, plus the queue time, plus the loading time. So you're spending 15 minutes of your life being miserable, just so you can get 1 game where you're top tier, and still probably be miserable as you get your 1 chance or 1 opportunity every 15 minutes to have a good game, and you get artied. Or you fight a tank that's superior, or has armor, or not stock like you might be. Right? But their concern is queue times lasting longer than 1 minute. Second, we realize that the vast majority of these complaints is for when players in Tier 8 get placed into Tier 10 matches. Yes, okay? That's because a large portion of our players actually want to play their Tier 10 vehicles. Okay, I was just talking about that. Think about it. +1 -1 would fix this. A more subtle reason is that there aren't a lot of people playing Tier 6 and 7 tanks, at least in comparison. So the opportunities to give a Tier 8 tank top tier matches are even more rare. Or are more rare. It doesn't say even, but I'm just saying. So it literally what I just argued about the matchmaking. So this doesn't work. Players are basically guaranteed. That's not true. You've literally just said it's not true. Why would you say this and then say this? Solving this problem would mean that we would need to make playing Tier 7, 8 more attractive than playing Tier 10. Doing that without making more players unhappy is tricky. Okay, how do you make Tier 6 and 8 more attractive? First thing you can do to Tier 6 is very simple. Remove the +2 -1 matchmaking for them. That's ridiculous. Give them back +2 -2. The second thing you can do is simply just give them all +1 -1. That's more attractive to me. I don't play Tier 8s anymore because of the +2 matchmaking. I do not play Tier 8s anymore, and if I do, it's a preferential tank, or a light tank, or a tank destroyer. But I don't touch my heavies. I do not touch my mediums. Wow. What about the situation when I'm the only bottom tier tank on my team? We agree that this isn't ideal, but there isn't an easy solution. Yes, there is. Yes, there is. There actually is. There actually is. Make that player, who's going to be the only bottom tier tank in a game, wait in queue for 15 seconds longer, so that he's not. Did you just hear what I said? No? Okay, well, let me explain it again. An easy solution is simply taking that tank, that player, who is going to be the only bottom tier tank in a match, and making him wait 15 more seconds. So he's not. What's this called? +1 -1. Okay, anyway, we've avoided implementing something like the old PC 357 matchmaker, aka the template matchmaker, because that was actually pretty despised on the PC side. This is true. I'll give them that. The matchmaker works on a FIFO, first in, first out basis. We prioritize the people waiting longest in queue to get a match. If there's only one person in the queue, at the bottom tier, the matchmaker decides that a match is better than no match. The reason why, quote unquote, like what's with the, okay, this is done is because even a bottom tier tank can meaningfully contribute and have a great result. It can, you're right, it absolutely can. If you're a flippin' Unicum, and in some cases, some players will have good matches, but even so, even as a Unicum, I'm a super Unicum. I have 3,660 W and 8 overall, not recent. And I have gripes being bottom tier. And I know I have good games bottom tier. And I love the challenge. But I know how hard it is. Think about the players who don't have 3,660 WN8. And don't have a 65% win rate playing solo. They clearly do not play their own game. They're focusing on queue time, queue time, queue time. What about player experience? Game experience? The pairs MM, the one that we are testing right now, well, it's over now, will make it so that the other team will also have the same tier composition. So if you're the only bottom tier on your team, there will be one person on the other team that is also bottom tier who suffers with you. Don't worry, it's fair. That makes the teams fair, but it doesn't make the game fun. They're confusing fair with fun. Trying to do something more, like ensuring that there's at least one X bottom tier, is something that we don't think the players want and would be upset if we actually implemented. You mean at least X bottom tiers? They meant to have an S here. At least X bottom tiers is something that we don't think the players want. Well, ask them. You've asked about +1 -1, and I remember seeing the poll in the forums before you took it down. 91% being in favor of +1 -1. Over 2,000 people voted. By the way, 91%. Why were 5 Amplitudes removed from the game? Well, this is obvious. First, apologies for lack of details, as this decision was made several years ago, so some specifics might have been forgotten. The principal reason they were removed is because of the difficulties they caused for the matchmaker. In order to make things fair, a 4 or 5 man platoon had to match against another 4 or 5 man platoon. This is problematic because the number of 4 or 5 man platoons in the queue was actually very low. So if there was another platoon in queue, it would frequently be off by 1 or 2 tiers. This is true, but if people want to do, so that's not a good reason. You can kind of you can just disclose that and say, hey, if you're doing 5 or 4 man platoons, you might have to wait longer in queue, and then that's the player's choice. And you might not even find a match, it could say, if you do 5 man platoons. And then that's their choice to do that, and let them know. You can have disclosures in your game if you really want to do that. You don't have to, oh, let's just remove it because it's hard in queue and make it so nobody can do it. That's not a good enough reason. A good reason would be, well, because 5 man platoons of Panzer 5.4s is stupid, which is absolutely true. 5 man platoons of Vanguards is stupid, which is actually true. But this being the reason, not a valid reason. The next result would be matches where one team would have a top tier 5 man platoon, the other team would have a middle or bottom 5 man platoon. Because at the time the tiers weren't balanced across teams, the team with the bottom tier platoon would frequently have more bottom tier tanks than the other team. Yes, this is true. But this is again where you disclose if you play your 5 man platoon, you might have to wait longer because you're waiting for another 5 or 4 man platoon at the same tier. Disclosure, guys. If you had honesty in your game, Wargaming, if you had honesty in your game, I guarantee it would go a long way. Because right now, you do not care about the longevity of your game. You admitted that there are more players playing with +1 -1, but you will not implement it because of queue times. You do not care about how long your game lasts. You don't care that your game is going to die, and you're digging its own grave. And you have the resources to dig it out. You don't care because all you care about right now is milking as much money as possible. Milk, 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 milk. You keep releasing new premium tanks. You keep releasing them cheaper. I mean, which is kind of cool. But I'm not going to spend money on your game. I haven't bought premium in years. And I don't buy tanks anymore from you guys. I don't do any of that because I don't care. I'm not putting my money into a game which is about to die. Because guess what? I can't take those tanks with me. It's kind of like dying in real life. I can't take anything here with me. So, anyway, all these results in some fairly unhappy players. The players on the team with the bottom tier platoon would be unhappy because they were clearly perceived to be at a disadvantage. The players on the team with the top tier would be unhappy because the platoon would do the lion's share of the work, or be horrible to the point where they get steamrolled, which is true. And that's true. But they're like politicians here. They've twisted it. They spun it around on you. People are unhappy, so we can't do that because of the way 5-man platoons were. But you could fix how it's distributed. You could fix how it's distributed. They have this, Wargaming has this tendency to, hey, instead of fixing the problem, we'll just remove it. We don't know why or how we can fix this. Let's not put time or energy into it. That's why the game is getting worse and worse. They're not putting time and energy to fix things. They're just removing it. Like the climbs in the game. How do we fix climbs? How do we make it so climbs, because people love to climb around. And it's fun. And it's not necessarily game breaking, because you only encounter that one every 100, 200, 300 games, if that. Well, what if you made it tutorials so people knew how to climb? What if you explained that, hey, there are some places, some secret places you can get to if you learn how, where you can get an advantage or see some cool sights or stuff like that. But no, instead you're just like, no, just remove it. Just remove it. Just get rid of it. Get rid of it. Don't look at it. 5-man platoons. People are complaining. How do we fix that? I know, just get rid of it. Just get rid of it. Oh, yeah. Oh, long queue times. How do we fix that? I don't know. Just get rid of it. Just get rid of it. Add bots. No, fix your game. That's how you fix queue times. Fix your game. One of the things we measured was the rate of 4 to 5-man platoon matches. It was roughly 0.02% of all the matches made. That's 2 out of 1,000 matches. Given the problems that it caused and that use rate, it was determined that the best path forward would be to remove the feature. This isn't mentioning all the games played at low tiers, where people don't know that you can have friends. And again, it affects 1 out of 500 games. This steamroll affects 1 out of 500 games. You literally, above, we're talking about players who play on the low peak times are going to be punished if we don't let them have +1, -1. So we have to give everyone +2, -2. Because of the minority. And now you're talking about an even vaster minority, and you just removed it. Where is your consistency? No, to be clear, 5-man platoons was something that was added to the console game. Originally, it was 7. It was 7-man platoons, and not something that came from PC. Our experience is that anytime we implement something that's not PC based, the game dies a little bit more. Our experiences with it is that it really did impact the matchmaking in a negative way, and reduced everyone's enjoyment. Oh, everyone's. Do never ever ever say, if you are making a statement, never use absolutes. Never use absolutes. And I know never is an absolute, but this is just common sense. Never use absolutes. Never say everyone. Never say, oh, that never happens, unless it literally never happens. Never say no one enjoys it. Never say everyone's enjoyment. Did you talk to everyone? No, but you certainly did ask a lot of people, and a lot of positives came back from the saying, where's 5-man platoons? I'm not for 5-man platoons. I'm not. I know it sounds like it, but I'm just arguing it. I'm remaining impartial between +1, -1, +2, -2, 5-man platoons, 3-man platoons. I'm kind of just arguing against the points Wargaming is making, because they're making terrible points. And I do not want 5-man platoons. But the points they're making are not good reasons to remove it. No one wants to go back to days 5-man, 5-4 platoons. We just mentioned this earlier, but they just used this after this. No, it reduced everyone's enjoyment because of the 5-man platoons. 5-man, 5-4 platoons. Oh, why didn't you fix the issues and bring it back? Short answer is, all of the code surrounding handling more than 3 tanks in a platoon is now gone, and it would have to be recreated. Oh, so you've just admitted. Why didn't you just say that? Instead of giving us all these bad answers, just say, we don't know how. We're incapable. We have no idea why we were given these jobs and allowed to work here because we have no clue what we're doing. Why didn't you just start with that? Thanks, though, for admitting that you have no idea what you're doing. Longer answer is all of the system that are impacted by the size of the platoons have been updated since 5-man platoons were removed. So it isn't a matter of simply restoring code. It's actually recreating that support in updated systems that were fundamentally not designed for anything other than 3-man platoons. This would be significant multi-month effort by a lot of people. You mean you would have to put work into your job? You would actually have to do something instead of introducing premiums all the time and saying, hey, we're not going to sell black tanks. Here, everyone have a black tank. The personal offer last week was a T-34 black, which, remember, they said they would never sell again. The above would also be just to enable 5-man platoons again and not actually fix the issues that they cause. Fixing those issues would also be controversial. Your face is controversial, let's be honest. Well then, figure out how to fix it. And then implement it because the players want it. But you don't. You need to release the next premium tank. You need to tell us why Cold War is good, and yet you keep implementing tanks into the mode that keep making it worse. Holy moly, I somewhat enjoyed Cold War. When it first came out, I did not enjoy it. Then a few months later, actually maybe almost about a year down the line, I started to actually enjoy it. I was like, oh, this is fun. And then came all the light tanks and all the rockets and all the speed and camouflage and just ridiculousness. Then like the FV, 4211, just like armor, stupid proof armor. And it's like, oh my gosh, they've just, if you're not playing one of those new premium tanks, you're playing Cold War wrong. And it has to be a new premium tank. Every premium tank they introduce is just broken. And then they release another one, and then that broken one is no longer broken because the new one is broken. And then they release another one. So if you had a premium tank that you got 2 months ago, you're already way behind. Anywho's, what else is there to talk about here? As an easy example, that Matchmaker would have to pair up the 5-man platoon against at least a 3-man platoon to end up with the same composition. That is, if it's a platoon of 5 medium tier 8 tanks on one team, then it's at least a platoon of 3 medium tier 8 tanks and 2 solo tier 8 tanks on the other. That's not so bad. You mean even composition? Yes, one team has a bigger platoon, but that's not so bad. The MM would not allow the situation where a top tier 5-man platoon would end up against a bottom tier any-man platoon. This would drastically increase the queue time. It would drastically increase the queue time, again, of the platoon. You're using your same argument, except you're using different words. You're using different words. And I will just use the same one I've been using. Have a disclosure. Let them know it's going to be longer. Alright, I don't care about any of this anymore. What about introducing 5-man for special events? First of all, it requires a code, which we don't want them to do. Alright, I'm done. I'm not reading any more of this. I cannot believe the tomfoolery. If they come up with a good reason. Don't just the reason they get. Oh my gosh. This is my favorite one. This is my favorite one. When we've turned it on in the past, the low peak population doesn't change meaningfully, but it does change. Just not meaningfully. Well, what's the definition of meaningfully? Give us the actual answers. So this is my favorite one. My second one is this. No. It is... Where is it? Oh. We think. I love the thinks. I love how they say thinks. But anyway, yeah, I'm not Forget about it. Forget. Oh, this one. To be clear, there are instances which very rarely occur where in the normal matchmaking, someone has to wait 5 minutes without finding a battle. When we've had +1 events in the past, the situation at low population time on weekends gets even worse. There's a significant number of people who did not wait the 5 minutes without getting a match. Or who did wait, sorry. You've just... The best, even during the best time, with +2, players aren't finding matches. Which means even in the worst times, with +2, players aren't finding matches. Notice how they did not mention that because it would prove their point wrong. They did not mention the low population numbers for +2 because you would see it's almost the same. Oh my goodness. Alright, well that's going to be it. Thanks guys for tuning in. I hope you didn't mind this news/rant video. It's kind of what it turned into. But, oh my gosh, it's just a bunch of monkeys over there. You know, someone asked me, Clone, if they offered you CC again, would you take it? No, absolutely not. Don't be crazy. Don't be crazy. But that's it. I hope you all enjoyed. If you did, slap that like button, comment, subscribe, go bug Wargaming some more, get into the streams, demand +1 -1. I don't care what you do. They're idiots. And they changed something, because I read like the first part of this the other day, and they said we were never... They had mentioned that they're never bringing in +1 -1. Ah, here. Also, outside the scope of this discussion, no, this wasn't it. They had a mention where they said we will never be implementing it again. Not even the events. They said never, and I wish I took a screenshot before they deleted that. But again, they used an absolute. They will never. We will never. Oh, everyone just doesn't like it. Everyone, really? Okay, well, anyways, that's it. I hope you all enjoyed. Slap that like button, comment, subscribe, go check out SpaceBANDIT, and I'll see you all later. Take care and peace. I'm just gonna say peace. Take peace. Be gone. Go in peace. Peace out.